Hi, my name is Avina Weber. I am 16 years old. I was born with Vascular Association, and I'm also 50% hard of hearing.
Hi, my name is Lemore Weber, and I'm Avina's mom. I came here when I was 13 to Canada from Argentina and landed in Calgary. And my husband and I met there and then moved to Edmonton and started a family. When Avina was born, she was born with Vascular Association, which essentially it's an acronym. So stands for vertebrae. A is anal atresia, C is cardiac issues, T is tracheal, R is renal, E is esophageal, and L is limb deformity. Avina has all of them except for the tracheal and esophageal issues.
Hi, my name is Rafat Aziz. I am the mother of Ali Akbar and Abdullah. We immigrated to Canada in 2014, and they were very young at the time. Ali Akbar was 5 years old and Abdullah was 3. And Edmonton has been our home ever since then. I was born and raised in Dubai, and these boys were also born in Dubai. And my parents are originally from Tanzania, which is in East Africa, even though we have a lot of Indian heritage within us. We love to call Edmonton our home.
My name is Mira. I'm 14, and I live in Edmonton. I was born in Edmonton, and my mom is from Israel, and my dad's from India.
And my name is Meital Siva Jain. I'm Mira's mom. As Mira said, I was born in Israel and my husband was born in India. We met in India and we came to Edmonton in 2006. And since then we've been living here, and Mira was born here in Edmonton.
When Avina was born, she had to go through a significant amount of surgeries, particularly her first 20 hours of life. She had to have her first surgery, and after that she had to have surgeries usually 3 to 6 months for the first 12 years of her life. This was extremely difficult for us as a family, for Avina as a baby, as a kid, and her sister. And we just, we had to struggle just finding the kind of help that we needed. It's a fairly rare association or syndrome to be born with, because there's so many multiple organs and things that are involved. So there's a lot of different surgeons and specialists. So it was really difficult to navigate it by ourselves as a family, and there wasn't really a whole lot of support, anyone that could help us out and try and figure out how to navigate through that kind of complexity. So it was a pretty lonely time for all of us.
One of the best resources that I did find here within Edmonton was, I think it happened a couple years after I found myself as a single parent, was I decided to tap out and reach out to the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization. And I was just like, there was about a 3-year waiting list for male mentors. And I said, it's 3 years. 3 years is going to pass whether or not the names of my boys are on that list. And sure enough, I put their names in. We did the whole intake process. 3 years later, actually it was more like 2.5, I finally got a call, and both my boys had been matched with male mentors. And till today, Abdullah's big brother, whose name is Adam, is now a part of our family, and they do a whole bunch of things together. They do snowboarding, cycling, and he's a great positive role model, not just for Abdullah, but even for Ali Akbar. And he really has become part of our family.
One of my earliest sports memories would be probably grade 3. In grade 3, me and my soccer team, we ended up in the city finals. And that was a really important part of my life, because that was probably the first time I had ever been on a team that was actually successful, and that made me feel successful and happy.
One of the significant experiences of my life was in elementary. I was dealing with going from surgeries and then recovering at home and having to come back to school. and catch up on work. And I remember like when I would have a new grade, I would have to explain a lot to each teachers about why I needed extra support.
Yeah, and it was just really difficult because we found that, Avina was in a lot of pain a lot of the time after these surgeries. And so her mobility was also a bit altered after a surgery, right? A lot of stiffness. And having to explain that to, the administrators and the teachers about why she couldn't participate again. And just people just didn't always understand. So having to modify and always having to miss school and having to pick her up, it was a difficult time for her to adjust and for us to adjust, and trying to navigate a system that isn't really designed for, these kind of cases.
But now it's getting better, and I'm in high school. I found I have a lot more resources and help that I can reach out to, which is really great.
One significant memory I have from junior high is probably starting grade 7 in COVID and just doing online school back and forth, and in grade 8 meeting the other grade 7 class who I hadn't met in grade 7, and just making new friends and not having to wear masks anymore.
COVID was a stressful time to our family, just like many other families. Mira lost her grandfather back in India to COVID, and she graduated from elementary school remotely, so her all transition from elementary school to grade 7 to junior high was all being done remote.
A significant memory that I had was in grade 8 after the pandemic, when I was preparing for my bat mitzvah as a transition into pre-adulthood or adulthood in Judaism, and I did a project where I collected period products for an organization called No Period Without that provides period products for people that can't afford them. And I did this because I'm pretty passionate, and things like gender equality are very important to me, and I just raised the question of why we should be paying for these products in the first place.
When the pandemic happened, it was very hard for me because I'm high risk, and so we were very scared about my health, and I already wasn't allowed to really participate in any sports or physical activities, and so being isolated, it was even harder.
And I just found that none of us really knew how to navigate, what this was and how to protect her. And so I felt like she was more isolated than everybody else. We would go out and she maybe couldn't, and we really tried not to see almost anyone, and a lot of masking, and there was no vaccines, and it was just a difficult time for somebody that is a high risk, just the unknowns. So yeah, it was just really difficult because it was very isolating. None of us really knew what was going on and how to protect Avina. And the thing was that prior to COVID, Avina couldn't really do contact sports because of her high risk, due to her lung and rods in her back and things like that. So then we, all of a sudden COVID comes and she's even more isolated because she can't even do any of those sports or anything else. So it became a really difficult time for us to try and keep her, happy and engaged and not go into, a state of depression.
Yeah, and when the pandemic started, I picked up archery, which I really enjoy, because me and my dad were watching like a TV show, and called Hawkeye, and they have bows and arrows, and I really thought that was cool. So then we went to like a place and we tried it out, and I fell in love. I'd like to show you my bow and arrow, and I got my first bow and arrow. So this is my bow. It's a recurve bow. Yeah, and then I also have some arrows, and a finger pad. And a finger pad is something that I use for when I shoot like an arrow. It helps me my finger glide so that it doesn't get caught, and it makes it a much smoother shot. So this is my arrows. All of them look like this. These are not wooden. These are actually plastic, but they're made to look wooden because wood would actually break when doing practice. So it has 2 different colors. The white one means that it faces forward, so that's the way it's supposed to shoot. Yeah. And then I also have the finger pad, and this helps me get a good shot. So when I put the arrow in, it goes between my thumb here and my fingers here, and then I would shoot like in the middle of this, like this. And I would anchor my thumb here and then shoot.
So when we first moved to Edmonton, it was very important for me to find some sort of activity to get the boys into and get them organized. And Edmonton is actually the only city that myself and the boys have ever lived in Canada. So when we migrated to Canada, we moved directly to Edmonton. And I think it was really important for me to take advantage of, seeing the active lifestyle that Canadians have, that Edmontonians have, Albertans have. And I really wanted to make sure that the boys had those opportunities, which I personally didn't have a lot of growing up, and to take advantage of that and really to inculcate being healthy and being happy in their own lives. And so, just the natural progression of where I come from, soccer was the first thing that I thought of, and I happened to see signs for enrolling them in indoor soccer, and I took that first step. And the first couple, they were initially with Millwoods Hockey, but then I saw them really enjoying it, and I wanted them to progress. So then they moved on to club soccer. And around the time that we moved into club soccer was when I found myself as a single mom, essentially. So we had a whole change in our family dynamic, but I really wanted them to continue soccer. So it was at this point when they were with Juventus, and I wanted to really thank Rob Mazzelli, who runs the Juventus club in Edmonton. And at the time that I found myself a single mom, I just went up to him and I said, hey, I know the boys have been playing with you, but I don't even know how I'm going to make the fees for the next month, for the next season. And I really wanted them to continue having that, connection with their team, with the teammates that they started to get to know. And I really wanted them to have that sense of normalcy despite the change in our family dynamic. And for a couple of years after that, Rob was really kind enough. He said, don't worry about the fees. He said, he did point me out to a couple of resources. I was just going through so much at that time. I didn't even know how to access those resources, but never once did Rob come to me and say, hey, don't worry, like asking for the money. He actually just said, let the kids play, let the kids play, let the kids play. And, as they progressed through soccer, we had the whole dynamic with the Edmonton Oilers taking up a lot of fantastic time in the hockey scene with Connor McDavid, and the boys started really tuning into hockey. And I saw them develop that interest. They were asking me to get them hockey sticks at home so they could play in the basement, which I did, and then they kept talking about it, and I could see that longing in their eyes for them to be on the ice, for them to be a part of the game. And so even though as part of the activities that I had enrolled them, that I used to do with them on the side, ice skating was one of them. And even though they've never taken skating lessons or anything along those lines, it was just kind of getting them on the ice and getting them going. What worked tremendously well was that, I was just like, somehow I've got to find a way to get them into hockey. I was determined. I just that longing in their eyes. I did not want them to lose out. So I pushed them and I researched. I went online and I said, okay, let me see how much this is going to cost me and how I can find resources. And then again, it was about finding a club that was not massively big, but then moving them into KC. And it worked. It really worked. I am
very grateful for that. Again, I took them in, we registered them, and I said, I pulled the registrar aside and I said, I don't even know how I'm going to fund this. And she said, there are resources. She gave me the list of resources and everything else. And that very same evening, after the boys went to bed, mind you, they were really young at that time. They were about, I want to say 10 and 8. And they were super young. And I said, and they were so excited. I remember walking into Millwoods Town Centre with them in hand and walking towards the registration desk. And they looked at me and they said, Mommy, did you bring us here to register us for hockey? And their eyes just absolutely lit up. And then they were showering me with hugs and kisses. And I said yes. And they were, got all the resources for Sports Central to get them outfitted. And before you know it, they were on the ice. And, you could see that happiness within them. And as a parent, especially as a single parent, that's really all you want for your children. Super happy just to see them on the side and for the fact that they're taking these opportunities and they are working at it and doing their best, working their hardest. I'm happy that it was just a matter of working with the foundation, but then they took it that step further and they're not giving up.
I think it was about grade 5 when I started watching hockey, and I really started loving it. I started developing a passion for the game. I started playing it, outside with friends, like street hockey and that sort of stuff. And then I told my mom, me and Bella, we really like this sport and we want to continue it. And she said, okay. And she found a way to put us in organized hockey. And that was very nice. And we had a lot of fun in hockey and playing it. The first couple of years was a little bit hard on us. We didn't really know how to play. I think I was using the wrong-handed stick when I was playing hockey first. But as I got better, as the years went along, I started, getting better, scoring more goals, getting more points, that sort of stuff. And right now, today, I am assistant captain and center on my team.
When I was in grade 7, I won the minor hockey week for hockey. It was a really great accomplishment, and we even won in overtime. So it was a really close game. The game went all the way to overtime, and I remember I scored 2 goals in that game. So it was a really good memory for me.
Yes, we were the complete underdogs in that tournament. No one was expecting us to win. Everyone was expecting a couple other teams to win. So in the group stage, we made it out, I think, first in our group, which was surprising to a couple of people, but no one thought it crazy. But then in the knockout rounds, we won our first game, then we won our second game, and then our third, and then suddenly we were in the finals. And no one had expected us to get this far, and no one had expected us to win this finals.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first 5 minutes of the game, I think we got scored on twice, which was horrible. My spirits were completely crushed. I'm like, okay, this is it. We lose. I mean, this was a good enough run. So I was prepared to lose. But then me and my brother and a couple of our other friends we changed up our strategy a little bit. I decided to play goalie, and I remember I made 2 diving stops. It was really nice. I won us the game. He had a hat trick in every game up to the finals. It was a very nice experience. Made us both bond a little bit. It was just a nice all around experience.
Yeah, so I remember this tournament really well. Everyone would think we were the underdogs and we weren't gonna win, but me and my brother would come home and think strategy and see how we were gonna win against some of the best teams, which we did really good in, and it made us bond even more together.
Other than sports, one of the other things me and my brother enjoy doing is we really enjoy reciting. We've both recited from a young age. We both started at about 3 years old. He memorized a couple of surahs, chapters in the Quran by the time he was 3 years old. I had to. We've recited in some pretty big places before. We've recited in big mosques in Dubai. We've recited at the legislator on Eid Day for a special program. And of course we recite at a couple of our local mosques. which is nice. I think we all prefer local mosques, it's just because we're comfortable with people around us, right? Now, I'd like to share one of my favorite verses from the Quran, chapter 14, Surah Ibrahim, verse number 7. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ تأذن ربكم لئن شكرتم لأزيدنكم ولئن كفرتم إن عذابي لشديد. The meaning of that verse in the Quran tells you that God will reward you for your patience.
And just like my brother, I really like to recite the Quran, but today I will be reciting poetry for Prophet Muhammad. You are Muhammad sallallahu, you are Muhammad sallallahu, you are Muhammad sallallahu, you are Muhammad sallallahu. You gave us parity of life, you took away the sleepless nights. You gave us hope and healed our souls and took us all towards new heights. In your footsteps we wanna go, you are our only saving grace. You are the closest to Allah, in your heart we all want a place. Give all of us a helping hand because you are the greatest man. You are Muhammad sallallahu, you are Muhammad sallallahu, you are Muhammad sallallahu, you are Muhammad sallallahu, you are Muhammad sallallahu. You are the brightness of the day, the peace and harmony of night. You shine out like a glowing star, the one that showers the world with light. You showed us it is essential to be truthful and to be fair. You showed us how to live our lives. You showed us how to love and care. A man like you will never find. You own our hearts, you own our minds. You are Muhammad sallallahu. 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 You are our teacher, our guide. You are the meaning of our life. We'll always keep you in our hearts until the moment that we die. You are the start, you are the end. The universe is in your hands. You own the planets and the skies. You own the smallest grain of sand. This poetry was about Prophet Muhammad, and Prophet Muhammad is a very important role model in my life because he teaches me how to be a good human being and how to live my life.
In Judaism, when a girl turns 12, it is celebrated with a ceremony moving from childhood to adulthood, and the whole celebration is preceded with a long learning. Mira had to learn how to read from the Torah, the section for that date. That specific section in the Torah was speaking about laws, and she took that piece about Torah laws and saw that there was a gap between how much being paid for men and how much being paid for women, and that inspired her to write her drasha. So she wrote a teaching about it, speaking about pay gap, and then she also did a social justice project specific to address it and collect the period products.
So I would like to read part of the speech that I wrote for my bat mitzvah. It means quite a bit to me because it was an important part of my life and it well represented many of my values. So, Bahar and Bechukotai are the names of my two parashas. Bahar is defined as Hebrew for on the mount, and Bechukotai means my laws, the word my representing God. This parasha follows God's laws and the many consequences if the Jewish people do not follow them. There was one specific subject within this parasha that I am focusing on. In this part, God is giving Moses the valuation to be used should anyone vow God the value of a human being. Valuation is defined by the English Oxford Dictionary as a professional judgment about how much money something is worth, its estimated value. As God proceeds to explain to Moses the valuation of the human beings, it is remarkably noticeable how the women's marketable value is greatly subordinate than assigned to the other human, a man. As the parasha moves on, one particular question remains in my head. Why do women get less than men for the same amount of work? Though this is a question commonly asked and studied, I feel as though we have not researched the root of this modern-day societal issue, exploring how and when it really started. So why have we not been talking about it if it's still an issue today? This is quite an important topic for me, but not just me. The gender wage gap affects women, trans people, and disabled people all over the world, no matter race, age, or religion, though statistically women of color and immigrants are even more impacted by the gender wage gap. As said by the Center for American Progress, the gender wage gap refers to the difference in earnings between women and men. Experts have calculated this gap in a multitude of ways, but the varying calculations point to a consensus. Women consistently earn less than men, and the gap is wider for most women of color. In my future, there is a great possibility that I will be impacted by the gender wage gap, and as it seems to me, my female ancestors were too. I wrote this speech because I see several impacts of the gender wage gap around me, and I think it's really important to address these things. And when I saw an example of it in the Torah, I realized how long this has actually been going on for, and I think it's important that we act on it. And reading that in the Torah motivated me to do my Dvar Torah project.
Yeah, I was really excited that Mira first chose to do a bat mitzvah because she had a choice, she didn't have to. And then when she chose this specific project and this kind of speaking for her drasha and for her social justice project, because social equity and social justice is something that's very important for me and for our families. We have been involved with different projects, and since Mira was little, we were taking her on demonstration and initiative to support social justice causes in Edmonton, and try to expose her to as many relationships with different people who are different than us. We also been involved with a project in Edmonton to address racism and anti-Semitism. It was called Bet Midrash, Community Conversation about Anti-Semitism and Racism. And we've done it for 3 years in Edmonton. I'm grateful to live in a city and a country that I'm able to meet so many different people that are not Jewish or Israeli like me. And I think it has a great potential to learn how to live together and maybe, even project it back to our home countries. One advice that I have for my fellow Edmontonian is to get to know people who are a little bit different than you. You might find out we all have the same needs. We are all very, very similar. We are all human. We all have this great potential for growth. And we might have different beautiful traditions that we use them in order to grow, but we are all the same.
For me, if I had to give advice to a youth my age, I would say if you're passionate about something, learn more about it and act on it and educate others around you.
But what advice that I can genuinely give any single parent out there, whichever culture you come from, is that it is hard. It is hard. The first few years are going to be very difficult. There are resources, but unfortunately, sometimes you would have to dig for those resources. And some resources you won't qualify for. So for example, I reached out to Alberta Health Services for mental health support for my children, especially considering their had now changed. There was a huge shift in dynamic within our family structure, and the fact that unfortunately the situation where we found ourselves, where I found myself as a single mom with full custody of my children, was not the best of circumstances. But the fact that they did not display any overt sense of depression or anxiety, and they were doing well in school, they were still being, social at their own schools, those things did not allow me to be proactive in taking care of their mental health. And so that fell on me too, to make sure that mentally they were okay. And that was a challenge in the sense that I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not somebody who necessarily knows what are the symptoms to look at. So that preventative and primary care that I wanted to provide for the boys as far as their mental health was concerned was not available. And so if there's anybody out there, I would say, listening to this and watching this, I would say, try to, if there is preventative and primary care that can be done for altering life circumstances that can be traumatic for children, this is what we want to do. But for any child or any youth listening to this, if I say, if this does happen to you, reach out and talk. Reach out to the parent that stayed, the parent you feel safe with, a guardian you feel safe with, a teacher you feel safe with. Because somewhere in that continuum of childcare providers, somebody does care and somebody will listen. And somebody will be there to hold your hand and say, let's find you a safe spot. Let's find you a safe place. And I feel grateful every day that I was that safe person for my own children. And I am more and more grateful for what these experiences have made me who I am today as a human being, and who have helped me develop and potentially extend that level of resiliency to my children.
If I had to give advice, let's say, have somebody within the healthcare system help navigate families that have children with such complexities to navigate the system. If I wasn't such an advocate for her, lots of her care would have actually fallen, and she wouldn't have gotten the care that she really needed. So just being able to just kind of navigate the system, have somebody that's an advocate that kind of guides you through would have been amazing. Thankfully, we were able to find it, but not without the, that like constant digging to try and find it, and then bridging the gap with the education. So having also somebody that would be available to, bridge the gap to her teachers and to the principal, and, create some sort of support for her that wouldn't make her feel like she was so different with having to miss so much school and catching up and just not feeling like she doesn't belong, because there was just never anything available that allowed for that. So my advice would be just to have more some sort of body within the governing body, education and healthcare system that kind of works together to help kids that have a disability really just thrive.